Perfect. I'm live. A couple of minutes late. I've got gin. I've got gin. All right, I'm just going to get this perfect for that. I'm just going to post this comment up so you can see it. Sound should be okay, I assume. So, hello, Teresa. I'm assuming my sound's okay. Let me just check. Yeah, it looks fine. Okay, cool. Right, let me post up a link in case anybody actually decides they want to join me this evening. Let's have a quick look. Let's find my Zoom link. Perfect. What a nice sunny day it's been today. It's been lovely. I was really excited after last week. I was really, really pumped. So I'm just posting that. I'm just posting up the link. So if anybody does want to join in, they can do. So it's going to go up in a second. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Right. Get that one up. I'll pin the comment. Who knows? There we go. That's cool. It's very different using the live via Facebook compared to the live via Zoom. So I'm just trying to figure out the difference between the two aspects. So apologies, I'm just faffing around with the technology. I'm there, I promise, I promise. It's purely because when we do the lives in the prison, when I do the lives with Lauren and with Stacey, when I do the lives with Graham and stuff like that, we do a live straight into Facebook. It responds in a certain way and it works absolutely fine. And this I actually do a live through Zoom, which works in a slightly different way. So then when I'm posting things, it doesn't give me quite the same ability, the same functionality, I should say. And I'm just going to see if I can actually jump into a different way of doing it. Let's see if that will give me the functionality. Yes, there we go. I've got it. Cool. How am I? How am I? I'm good. You can see I'm quite red. Like I have caught the sun today. I've got some sunglass strips along here. And actually today I spent some of the day out in the garden. We it's not a particularly interesting story, but basically we planted a hedge. So I spent some of the day out in the garden. It's been really glorious weather. It is my last day, my last weekday where I've probably had a little bit less work I think to do because of lockdown, obviously because we're closed. So actually I kind of took advantage of that and I just spent some time planting a hedge with Emma today, and that's pretty much what we did. It got very hot because obviously it was quite warm, and then I went in the pool, and that was kind of it. I went for a quick swim, and now I'm here, and I've not planned anything at all. And to be honest, I love it. I absolutely love it. I came off last week's JoinJoel, and Emma turned around. She come down to put the kids to bed. She said, "How was it?" I was like, "It was great. It was brilliant because it's unplanned. Because I've no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea what I'm going to say." And I love that because so much of my life is planned, it's focused, it's planned, it's executed. You know, it really is kind of put together in a certain way. So to do something that's just not planned, brilliant, love it. I didn't use sunblock, do you know what, Teresa? Because I didn't actually even realize how hot it was. So yeah, so I didn't, but I'll be brown tomorrow. I'm very lucky in that sense. I don't normally use the word lucky, as a lot of you know, but my skin, I guess my skin tone or my go-to for my skin is to go brown. So what normally happens is if I start catching the sun, I might go a little bit red, a little bit shiny the first day, but tomorrow this will brown off really nicely. I'll get a good base tan, and then that's me good for the summer. And we're in England, so you know it's good for 2 weeks maybe before the summer finishes. Hi Jenny from Most Wanted. I love Jenny. Jenny, I'm assuming we're going to see you soon. We're obviously going to be reopening jails soon. So very excited to see everyone coming back, all the customers, all the visitors, all of our paranormal teams and friends and customers and clients and visitors and such like that. So really excited for that. So yeah, so that was sort of my day today. It's been a big week, purely because we're now focusing very much on reopening. So we've been doing obviously the lives with Graham on Wednesday, so they've been great. Now we're refocusing on opening, and that's changing the tide, should we say. And it's quite difficult for everybody. I'm sure there's lots of you out there feeling the same thing, because I guess everyone's now quite used to, so I'm just reading the comments as we go. I assume you're now quite used to sitting at home, not having to kind of work in the same way. And now we're starting to come back to it. That's quite different. Oh, Jenny, you should totally jump onto Zoom. We can have a call via Zoom live on Facebook. I actually kind of said I wasn't going to talk too much about prisons tonight. I wasn't going to talk too much about prisons. I wasn't going to talk too much about that. I was actually going to talk about my first business, my failure, also my success, in terms of how that failure of that business led to the successes I now see, because lessons learned basically. And I said I was going to talk about that tonight, so I'm probably going to do that. And I'm gonna see the comments, obviously answer as we go. So that's why I'm looking over here, because I can see the comments over here. Dave's just asked, will tours be easy to do with social distancing? Dave, that's a fantastic question. Guided tours are going to be quite tricky, so we won't do guided tours until the middle of July, so probably around the 18th of July, and then the guided tour numbers will be reduced. That's just guided tours because of the style of them, the areas that you go to, the nature. We also have to look at the client demographic, because in customer demographics, we get quite a lot of families, so they can huddle together, and then couples can huddle together. So it's about how we can kind of position people. We don't get 30 individuals on a guided tour. It just never happens. So we need to have a look at how we're going to manage that. But self-guided tours, so easy. I mean, it is unbelievably pleasing to see how straightforward it is to social distance in a prison. That is what they were built for. If you've been to the jails, you'll appreciate this. If you haven't, you can see it behind me, and I'll move out of the way and you can have a look. That space behind me that you can see there between the two landings, that's 10 meters. It's literally just under 10 meters. So you can easily have 2 meters either side and still have 6 meters in the middle. So it's a massive space. And you've got to remember, prisons were built to social distance. They were purposely built to social distance. They were built in the Victorian times. So our prisons specifically were built with the concept of social distancing people from society, but also social distancing people from each other. Remember that it was built for 1 man per cell. So it's 178 capacity. And we're proposing that we'll do 200 people on site at any one time. Obviously one-way routes, up and down sets of stairs. So you go up one set of stairs, you come down the far set of stairs. It's really straightforward for us. A couple of pinch points, but yeah, we can definitely get open. So we're really looking forward to that. And actually, there'll be more of an announcement coming out about that tomorrow. I did say I wouldn't talk too much about prisons, but obviously I will answer the questions as they come in. I am sure that somebody from our marketing team is probably there at the moment on tender hooks, kind of going, Joel, don't say anything you shouldn't say, because announcements aren't actually going out until tomorrow. And I think that makes them a little bit nervous. So I'll shut up and drink some gin. I've got rhubarb gin, so I'm excited for that. James, yeah. Do you know what? Having a swimming pool is lovely and relaxing. If you don't have 2 children, with a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, there is nothing relaxing about having a pool, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. Yeah, and I see people commenting about being to the prison. You could put 500 people in the prison and you wouldn't bump into anyone else. Easy. Because the space is a massive site, there's loads of areas to go, and you naturally follow a route. So yeah, I'm gonna move off prisons. I'm going to talk about my first business, because I think that's a nice position to. I think it's a nice story to tell, and I think now's a nice time to tell it as well. So we'll just drink some gin. Okay, so I guess we're going to go back because I'm just checking those in. Okay, so. How did this begin? So in 2000, I'd always wanted to run my own business. Always. That was always a dream of mine. It was always an ambition of mine. And I guess as I got older, my mum ran her own company, so I sort of watched her and my aunt run their own business. So I'd always kind of been around it, and the problem I had was I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea what my business was going to be about. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So I spent actually a number of years between leaving school and starting my first business. I mean, I left school at 16. I trained as a chef. I traveled. I went to a couple of different countries in the world. I spent a year in Australia and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until 2011. It was the year the year Delaney was born. So the year my 9-year-old was born. 2011. I actually started my first company. So I must have left school in 1999 to 1999. So I guess it took me 12 years from leaving school to starting my own company, 28. And during that time, I did loads of different things, but I did carve myself out a really nice career in leisure and tourism. And basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I trained as a chef. I'd worked as a chef for a few years. I'd left that job. I'd met my girlfriend, that's now my wife. I was 21, I think. I'd come back from traveling, and I just didn't have any idea what I wanted to do really other than my business. So I applied for a job as a lifeguard, and I started working in leisure. And I'm not going to talk too much about that now, but basically over the course of the next 5-6 years, I progressed very nicely. The first couple of years, I didn't really do a lot, to be honest. I just sat around in a swimming pool, watching people swim. And that was kind of it. Lifeguarding is one of the best jobs in the world, I promise you. You work in 36-degree heat all day. You get to wear flip-flops all day, and you get to save lives and make a difference. So I mean, I never saved any life. I didn't have to because I was in a swimming pool that wasn't very deep. But it is a great job. So if there's younger people out there looking for jobs, apply to be a lifeguard, even if you just do it for summer. Brilliant job. So I did that, and then I progressed on. I started working in gyms. I became a gym instructor, personal trainer. I then managed a gym as a gym manager. And then I was in a position where a site manager's job came up, so to run my own leisure centre. And I was working for the council at this time, for Somerset Council, and I applied for that job and I got it. So I took over my own leisure centre. And then about a year later, I'd had a phenomenal results in my leisure centre, absolutely phenomenal. Some of it was unprecedented, not been seen before. We had a massive turnaround from a hugely loss-making site to a great profit. That happened in just over a year. And then basically I was requested or moved into a centralized role to run or to oversee 13 fitness facilities across leisure centres. So it was a huge step up. And during that time, I discovered a piece of technology called the ActiPed, funny enough, which was basically a little device, which is what you'd find in a Nike Plus. I haven't got one with me, funny enough. But basically, you put it on your shoe, and it tracks your activity. So how many steps you did, how many minutes you've walked for, how many calories you've burned, the distance you covered. So just exactly what your phone would now do. But back then, it was in a little device. It's back in time with Blackberries. You put it on your shoe, and it just tracked everything you did, and it fed into an online application. So I basically was working on some projects, bringing this to market, and I was looking at different things we could do. I was Gordon Britters, kind of, yeah. So looking at what I could do with this device, and I could see that gyms, and this is 2010, I could see that the future for gyms, or a big future for gyms, was how they could continue to work with clients and customers who weren't in the gym, how they could attract and hit that market, that external market. They won't come in and pay a membership, and effectively what was going to become activity tracking and wellness market, which it now is. So I devised this program. I was working with schools, and basically I was running this program out to schools where school children were all given this device, and they fed into online applications. Think a really basic early version of Facebook, but for activity. So you collected steps and calories and distance and time, and you could create friend networks like Facebook, but inside this application, secure application, and you could set challenges up with each other. So you could set challenges with your friends and your teachers and stuff like that. And there's classes and year groups and things. It's brilliant. And it was all about getting people active and getting them moving without almost realizing they were getting moving because they were doing it because they wanted to beat their friend. They weren't doing it to get fit and healthy. They were doing it because they wanted to beat their friend. So it was a huge psychological piece in there as well, which was really interesting. And in the back of that, I started building in programs. I wanted to start building programs. So I got it as far as I could go with the little amount of funding we'd had through the leisure services. And I remember sitting down with the CEO at the time, who I fell out with quite spectacularly. And I must admit now, a number of years later, and I did think this a while ago, I actually have huge admiration for this guy because I didn't realize or appreciate the position he was in at the time. But I basically sat down with him. I said, hey, look, we've run this program, we've run this project, we've run it as a little project, a side project. I think this has got massive legs. I think it can go really, really far. I would like you to change my role to head up this project, just this project. I'd like you to assign £70,000 to this project so we can build this application bigger. And I would like to take it out to more schools. And I actually think there's a market here for corporate companies. And I think as we grow, we'll be able to see the data coming through. We'll be able to start utilizing that and potentially monetize that. Anyway, long story short, he didn't see it. He didn't see the future of it. He didn't see wearable technology, wearable activity technology as a big thing. He didn't see data as a big thing, particularly at the time. So he refused. And I just couldn't believe it. And I was just absolutely, completely gobsmacked and really disheartened by it, and he refused. And that was kind of the big turning point for me, because I knew this would work. I knew it could work. I knew it had massive legs. I knew it was really early doors in the UK. It was happening in America. And I saw examples of it happening in America. I was working with partners that were doing it in the US, but it hadn't started in the UK. So it was like first in. And basically he said, no, it wasn't going to happen. And it was about a week, maybe 2 weeks later, I went into work and I handed in my notice. And I just said, guys, I'm leaving. And I'm leaving because I want to do this. So I'm telling you right now that not only am I leaving, but I'm going to set up a company to do this, basically. That's how it is. Is there any non-compete in there that was affecting that? And there wasn't. Was there any bad relations that was going to happen? There wasn't, because nobody thought it was going to work. Nobody believed it was going to work. So that was it. So I quit. I had my last month's salary coming in, a tiny bit of money in the bank. I'm talking about like maybe £1,500 to £2,000 in the bank. Emma was working full-time at Shepton Mallet Prison, funny enough. So she was working full-time, Shepton Mallet Prison, as a psychologist. So we still had money coming in. And I built a business. And I built a company called Step Success. And the whole premise was we built an activity tracking application. So you logged in via Step Success, you had a device, you logged in, you create your own profile, just like Facebook, but a very basic, simple version. You then assigned your device to you, you put it on, it tracked your activity. And then you could connect with other people inside the network. And you could connect with people you know, people you didn't know. You could create competitions and win awards and stuff like that. And then I started building in yeah, you got it, James. And then I started building the programming behind the scenes. So I started writing lots of programs, which was a skill set I had. So fitness programs, health programs, nutrition programs, exercise programs, and pumping all that into the back end of the site. So you had this huge database of stuff you could connect. And then basically, and so it's got a long story, but this is the way it is. I'm totally forgot you're on tonight. Good evening. How are you? I'm good, thank you, Laurie. I'm talking about my first business, Step Success. So I'm getting to the exciting part. So I'd launched it. I'd borrowed £18,000 from the bank because I needed to build did I do that straight? Sorry, that's a lie. I tell a lie. I built all of this with a business partner. So hadn't given. He had a percentage of the business, a small percentage. And as part of that, he built the website and started the application work. So I did the first year. And I think we made about £17,000 in profit. So it was small, but it was good. We were making some money, and that was getting plowed back into the business. And then along came Network Rail. So I had a couple of little clients in terms of had a couple of schools in different places, lots of pilot projects going on for the first year. So not a lot of money coming in, but lots of different pilot projects going on. And it was doing okay. I think we turned over something like 56,000 in the first year. It's not masses of money. We made about £17,000 profit, but all of that had to be reinvested. It did get reinvested. Um, and then I kind of started making a number of mistakes. I got the first bit of the business right, and I was doing lots of pilot projects. I started making some mistakes, and one of the big ones was we did some work with a PR company, and PR was something I'd never done before. Didn't really understand it. To me, PR and marketing were the same thing. That was really naive. Obviously, they're not. And basically, I signed a contract with a PR company. I think it was for £12,000. So that ate up a good chunk of the 17K. For them to do this huge PR launch on us as a business, because it was all about how we get out. And they wanted to heavily concentrate on the consumer market. They were like, this is brilliant. You put this device, people will buy this device, and off they go. And they'll buy it from you off your website or from a shop type of thing, and off they go. The problem with that was it wasn't built for consumers. It was built for mass volume. And at the time, I just started working with Network Rail, who had like 100,000 employees or something, massive organization. And I was working on them on a contract that was in the value of about 2.3 million for us, and trying to get that over the line. And then off the back of that, we started working with Tesco's, we started working with Bupa, so some really big names in very small pilot schemes, but they were growing and they could see the benefit, they could see it working. And this PR company did this huge campaign on consumer processing, in the consumer market, selling direct. And suddenly we were in trouble because we didn't have a consumer product. So we had to build a consumer product. So I had to then borrow about £18,000 from a bank to plow into a consumer product, to create a consumer product very, very quickly, because it was marketing. People wanted to buy it, but we didn't have it. And as we were creating it, the demand was dying off, and it just wasn't enough there. And my biggest mistake was I didn't stick with the mass volume, which I should have stuck with corporates. Then, unfortunately, what happened was Network Rail employed somebody new. They employed a new head of health and well-being, a nice enough guy, I guess. I sense the tone. I'm gonna need some gin for this one, maybe something stronger. So they employed this guy, and this £2.3 million contract. They're basically been promised my direction in terms of what we were going to do. We've done so much work for these guys. He used our entire proposal, our entire program as the tender for their well-being program, and they put it out to tender. And this guy had come from Nuffield Health, who had their own program that were a direct competitor of us. And long story short, by and large, Nuffield won this contract. So that was a bit of a kick. And then I just made lots and lots of other mistakes, and I started going down this slippery slope of just the business getting worse and worse. We lost the Network Rail contract, so that was gone. Tesco's, I couldn't get over the line because of the way they worked. It was just too big an investment. It was the wrong time for them. Then Fitbit, and then Fitbit hit the UK market. So that came over. And they started hitting the market big style because they had huge commodities to be able to do it. They had lots of money behind them, and off they went. And I just couldn't keep up with their pace. And it just went down, and I just kept trying to plug, but I just couldn't do it. And in the end, what ended up happening was I think by this stage, I'd got to about £60,000 worth of debts had accumulated behind the scenes, because I wasn't earning any money in the company, so I wasn't able to earn money, so I'd had to borrow money to live. Credit cards were maxed out. The prison, Emma had actually left her job at the prison by this point because we'd had our second child. I think Jonah was just been born, or was just about to be born, so she was off work. And yeah, it was just horrendous. It was an awful time. And then I spoke with a company who basically said that they would like to buy my business, but they would like to buy it for £1, because that's all it was worth. And as part of that agreement, my business partner had to agree, or the other shareholder had to agree to sign it over. So that was all going through a process. It's a really long version of it, but I'm giving you the reality. This is the hardship of it. So it was about 60K debt. And my the business partner I had at the time, I asked him to sign the company over to sign away the sharehold. Basically, I was signing away my percentage. He needs to sign his away percentage. We were going to get £1 for it, but the company was going under. It was going under whatever was going to happen. So the options were, you can either sign this document and we can sell the company for £1 and I will have no debt, which at the moment stands about 60K. Or you can not sign the document and the company goes under anyway, and I landed with 60K's worth of debt because the purchasing company had agreed to take on the debt as part of the acquisition. And his response to me was, Sodja, that's the polite word. These are the polite words. Sodja, I'd rather see you screwed over than bail you out effectively. I'd rather see you fail because I've put time and effort into this and I feel I should get something from it. So his response very much was, screw you, swallow the 60K. That's your own doing. And he refused to sign the document. So I wasn't actually able to sell the company. They couldn't buy the company. So what I had to do was what's called an asset transfer. And basically they made me an offer to buy the assets of the business. And that's what they did. And they bought the assets of the company for something like £6,000. So £6,000 was instantly swallowed up by the overdrafts in the bank. And the interest had accumulated by this point. And they got up and got up. I had debt collectors banging on the door, threatening to take cars, threatening to take everything we had, basically, because I ran the business from home. And it just scaled and scaled and scaled. And before you knew it, I think at the height of it, I'd have to double check, but I think it was £82,000 worth of debt at the highest point. I had £1.52 in the bank account, £1.52 in my bank. I had £82,000 worth of debt. We were in negative equity in our house, and it was just, we had bailiffs on the door every single day, different bailiffs, and it was just constant. And life was really tough. Thankfully, the company that had done the asset transfer, they wanted me to come on board, so they took me on as head of their e-wellness division, and they paid me a salary, a decent salary. It was okay, and that allowed us to at least live. And kind of get back on our feet. I wasn't able to pay off the debt. I couldn't afford to pay off the debt because everything was just being swallowed up every single month, trying to just keep our heads above water. So I managed to work out accumulation plans with the banks. I just said, guys, just stick with me. I promise I'll make it good. And that's basically what happened. And I think that was the end of 2013. That must have been when I sold Step Success, when I sold the assets. And then I had to go through the most painful process as a company owner of winding up your own business with no assets and stuff like that. So that was a really hard time. I learned a lot from it. And I spent the next year working for this other company, basically. And I had a non-compete, so I couldn't do a lot else. And at that time, Shepton Mallet Prison had just closed. And I saw that this was going to, someone's just asked, did it ruin my credit rating? Holy fuck, did it ruin my credit rating? My credit rating was shit. It was awful, so bad. But I owed so much money and I had nothing. So the banks were actually, nobody wanted to push me bankrupt because there was no benefit to anybody. I had no assets, so there was no benefit for anybody foreclosing. So I utilized my, I guess, part of my skill set, which is the way I can talk and my vision and my passion. And I basically said to the banks, look, I can sort this, but you just need to give me some breathing space. So they agreed to, I think they gave me 6 months with like no payments, consolidate as much as I could. And I had 3 different banks that I had to do this with, and debt collection agencies. And they gave me 6 months to kind of, to get my way through it. And over that 6 months, I was able to just get back on our feet enough that I could just start clawing away little payments. It's like £100 here and there on £82,000, but I was able to do it. And because I showed willing, they were happy to just kind of let that continue on a reviewing basis every three or 4 months. It was 2013. The prison had closed, and I was like, oh, that'd make a great tourist attraction. That'd be so good. And I've been talking about that for a little while, and I thought it'd be so good. And that was it. And then I think it was 2014, so a year after it closed, the prison came on the market. It came up for sale, and I was like, oh, what do I do here? I had no money. I still had all this debt. I was like, what do I do? And I spoke to Emma. I was like, I think we should put a bid in. I think we should. What the hell have we got to lose? Let's chuck a bid in. The challenge was that I still had a non-compete grata with the company that I was working for. But this was leisure and tourism, and that was technology. So so I was able to get around that, and they were okay with me doing that. I told them, I was quite open and honest. I said, look, I'm trying to buy a prison, and this is what I want to do. But I'm dedicated to my work. I'm dedicated to what I do for you. But I am going to put this bid in. So that was fine. Put the bid in, didn't win it. And eventually City and Country bought it. So this is now going towards the end of, that was middle of 2014, I think July 2014, the bids went in. It was October, November 2014 that the MOJ contacted me to say, hey, you got down to the final three. We're doing some assessments. And I think it was beginning of December, they turned around and said, well, it wasn't them direct, it was their agents. And they said, you haven't been successful. We sold it to somebody else. And we'll be announcing that in end of January when it completes, when the sale exchanges and completes. And sure enough, City and Country bought it, who we've worked with for a number of years now. We've got a good relationship with. So I did that, and off the back of that, off the back of Shepton, I just had the bit between my teeth. I thought, John, this could really be something quite special. So I banged out an email. It was a decent size email. And I basically looked for the top 5 companies in the country that I thought could handle, top 5 development companies in the country that I thought could handle a development of Shepton Mallet Prison style and size. And I basically just cold emailed all the CEOs and all the owners of these companies saying, hey, this is who I am. I heard you might have bought Shepton Mallet Prison. Love to have a chat. And Trevor Osborne emailed me back to say, I'm trying to buy a prison, a conversation you hear every day. And Trevor Osborne emailed me back to say, haven't bought Shepton, but I bought a place in Shrewsbury. Let's have a chat. And that's how that came about. And what I was able to do was apply everything I'd learned from Step Success and from that failures and successes. I had successes in there, definitely had successes, and the failures. And I was able to apply that and really move that. And I guess one of the big things I learned was about what the drive is. What is it that you want to do? And I'm a strong believer, if you just want to go into business to make money, you are probably going to struggle, because you have to have so much passion for what you're doing to be able to put in the effort and the hard work and the time. If it's just money, it's not enough. It's not, money's not enough. It's not a good enough reason. It's not a singular good enough reason. And over the last few years, I've learned more about how it's about people. And that's something I'm now very passionate about. But yeah, so that was Step Success. Somebody asked to comment in there, do I still have this debt? I don't. And somebody asked about my credit rating. It's a hell of a lot better now. So I took over the jails. I think when I took over the jails, so this was August 2015, I took over the jails. Or I took over Shrewsbury, sorry, they opened Shrewsbury. Took the keys on the 7th of July, 2015. At that time, I was still working for another company. And so I was still working for them 40 hours a week. That was fine, but I wasn't in a non-compete anymore. So I could do it. I could work, as long as I did my 40 hours for them, I could do whatever else I wanted to outside of that. So I was working 40 hours for them. I was working about 80 hours running my own business. So I basically didn't sleep. That was the reality. I think when we took over the prison, I think I had £68,000 worth of debt. It wasn't just me. Emma's in this as well. The debt was some of it was in both our names. Some of it was just in my name. So we had £68,000 worth of debt when we took over the jails in 2015. And over the last 5 years, we've paid it off. Actually, it took 4 years. We paid it off. We're just paying it off bit by bit. Again, a few £100s a month basically, and we just slowly increasing as the business was able to earn a little bit more. I could get paid a little bit more, and therefore I could pay off the debt a little bit quicker, because that was the ultimate goal. Because there was no concept of keeping the jails originally. We were only supposed to be there for a year, and then it was 18 months, and then it was 2.5 years, and then it was going to get developed. So there was no plan beyond that at Shrewsbury. It was always a plan maybe at Shepton, something different. So we were obviously running it, having a brilliant time, loved it, having so much fun with the staff, meeting some really good people, really engaged with the customers, and I could see the future for it. I could see a huge future for it. But and basically just working really hard, paying off this debt, and I think it was. No, I don't think I know. It was 2018. It was March 2018. I made the final payments to clear off our debt, and I made two payments. One was for £12,000 and one was for £22,000, I think. So it was about 34,000 pounds I paid off in one go, and cleared the remainder of our debts, and that was March 2018. So it took a couple of years to claw it back, but I mean, you're talking about generating £68,000 of money to be able to pay off debt in 2 years. But to do that, we had to work 100 hours a week, both of us, 100 hours a week, every week. That was it. And our credit rating was still shit. We had no debt at all, but our credit rating was awful. So we had to then work it back up. So that's what we did. So yeah, our debt was awful. Our credit rating, sorry, was awful, but we had no debt. And over the next year, we basically just put money in the bank and just did the things you did. And in 2019, so a year ago, came back from New Zealand from a holiday, and whilst we were in New Zealand, we closed on the house that we're now in. And yeah, that was it. And but we had to get our credit rating up, and that was the big thing. One of the big challenges with buying the house was our credit rating still wasn't fantastic. Emma's was better than mine. I think hers was good and mine was fair, or however they categorize it. And the only reason we were able to get the house was because we were able to put up a decent deposit. We had to put up quite a sizable deposit to get it. And thankfully, the property is worth more than they were selling it for. Sounds weird, I know, but you do come across those every now and again. You find a person selling a house that wants it to go to a very specific type of person, which is what happened. They wanted it to be bought by a family. We were a family, so they were willing to let us have it under the value price so they could get a quick sale and they could get it through, and it was going through probate. So that was it. And now we have a house, and I can show you right now. And now we have a lovely house. And if I take off my virtual background, with no plaster on the walls. So it's a real doer-upper. But I like pretending I'm sat in the jail. So that was it, and that was Step Success. That was a huge time. Funny enough, we went through some really enjoyable stuff. I can see Lauren joined. I don't know if she's still on, but she will laugh at this, and she will certainly comment at this without a doubt. But we had a logo, the very first logo we had for Step Success, brilliant logo, and it looked just like Spire Healthcare. So when I went to trademark the logo, I had a very threatening letter from Spire Healthcare telling us they were going to take us to court and sue us for everything we had. So we redid the logo, much better logo. Loved it. And actually, I've got it tattooed on my back just here. So I'm sure Laura will want to comment about that. So I have got my first business logo tattooed on my back here. And I do keep threatening to get the other business logos that I have tattooed on me because I love them, because they are my babies. They are mine. So I want to, I like that. But yeah, so that was a hard time, but very, very difficult times, but really important in life. Really huge growth, huge development, massive amounts of just sheer perseverance, and just gore, and just kind of continuing to push. Doesn't matter how much was against me. That's just what I did. And now here we are in the jails, and we're just trying to buy the damn things. Who would have thought, other than me, who would have thought that we'd be in a position to try and buy them? COVID has not helped. That has not been a friend to us, I'll be honest. We've fallen through the cracks every single step of the way, and it's cost us nearly £76,000 to date, just in costs over the last 3 months, basically, just for being closed. That's kind of what's come out. So that's quite scary to think that the amount of money it's cost us just to be closed is the same amount of debt that I had when I started. I guess that is full circle for you. So that is it. I'm going to pick up a couple of questions. I'm almost as consistent as Gary Vee. Do you know what, Ewan? That is the nicest thing anybody has ever said to me. Thank you so much. I think that is such a lovely comment. And you know what, I'm gonna I'm gonna screenshot that because I am gonna get you to come to the prison one day when we reopen. When we reopen later this month, I'm gonna send you and drop me a message if you're still watching. Drop me a PM me or DM me. Send me a message and I will sort you out with tickets to come to the jail and say hello and stuff like that, because that is such a nice comment. Thank you. That means huge amounts to me because I think that guy's great. How did I learn about employment, recruitment, wages, taxes, etc.? The same way as you learn to walk. You just do it. You just go through it and you stumble your way through it. And it is literally like that. And I'll give you a really quick analogy / story. My stepdad, who really helped me in my first company, he'd worked in another business with a great entrepreneur who built a fantastic business, sold it for a few million and retired. And my stepdad worked for him as in his accounts department. And I was chatting to my stepdad one day about the types of people that are entrepreneurs and the types of people that aren't. And his position on it was, you look at where you want to be and you look at this journey of enjoyment and you kind of see all this stuff that is going to be an experience. And you're like, wow, look at that. I mean, that's where I'm going. But look at everything I'm going to experience on the way. And he was like, it's like driving maybe across America. You know you're driving down Route 66. You know you're heading to this certain destination. And you're thinking about all the adventures you're going to have on the way. And wow, that's just looking amazing. And he says, and that's entrepreneurs. But then people that aren't entrepreneurs would look at it and kind of see the end goal. Yeah, I'd like to have the house and the cars and, be able to support people and be able to do this and, have all the things that come with that sort of success. And he goes, but I would look at it. He was saying he would look at it and go, but how am I going to pay people? How am I going to deal with taxes? How am I going to deal with insurance? How am I going to pay the rents? How am I going to get customers in? How am I going to market? How am I going to advertise? How am I going to pay the corporation tax? How am I going to do all these things and just put all these barriers and blockades and negatives and issues in the way? And entrepreneurs naturally don't do that. For me, that's the big thing, is you just don't see it. So for me, I never saw having to pay staff. I never saw about, how I would have to learn about employing people. I never saw about how I'd have to recruit people, how I would have to, pay wages, taxes and stuff like that. It just happened. And when I took on my first staff in the prison, it was at that stage. I'd never run a payroll before. I'd only ever used contractors in my first company. So it was at that stage, I had to learn how to run a payroll. And I don't believe in God particularly, but thank God, or, thank you for the powers that be. They created the internet, because Google is your friend. Because all you had to do was tap into Google, how do I run a payroll? And the Gov websites, they have all the information there, and you just have to go through it. And it's painful and it takes ages. And that's why when you're an entrepreneur and you start your first business, you are a slave to every department. You need to know every single thing, because you do every single thing, because you're the only person. But I'm a really good example of how you can start a business, not just with nothing, but with a lot less than nothing, and how you can make it successful. You have to work really bloody hard, you have to have focus, but it can be done. And I was in a position where I'd learned a lot of lessons from my failed business, and I could apply those to to create a successful business. And I don't think you'll really find any entrepreneur that is started a successful business first time. You have to learn the lessons. It's like learning to walk. You have to fall over to learn to walk. And yeah, someone's just said about positivity. You've got to be positive. So yeah, and now we have accountants, and we have people in finance that support us with these things. I get lots of updates from our accountants. COVID for us it's been painful financially, but the process has not been difficult in terms of furloughing staff, in terms of furloughing staff, in terms of how we're going to pay them, how we claim the money back, how that affects tax and national insurance, all those kind of things, because we've got accountants that support us and advise us. We've got somebody, Lisa, in our finance team who's brilliant. So she's had loads of headaches, I know, but she's had headaches, which means I haven't had the headaches, which means I can do other stuff. Like lives in the prison, Graham and Lauren and stuff, and Stacey. So it's just you kind of grow through that, basically. But yeah, I mean, I learn new things all the time. I'm trying to think of the last thing that kind of landed on me, really. Yeah, Dave's just saying, always scared shitless when it comes to business. Do you know what? I get that. I totally get that. I understand that. And for me, I perform better under pressure. I do. I naturally, I like that bit of pressure. I like those butterflies in my stomach. I like that nervousness. I like that feeling of almost electricity and kind of like, wow, I'm really alive on this. And and I am nervous, but that helps me perform. It helps me do better. So I quite like that. But yeah, I get why you'd be scared. I mean, right now I'm trying to buy the prison. And we're talking about serious money. We're talking into the millions of buying it and raising the finance, and being able to make the monthly payments on the mortgage and being able to do all the other upkeeps and all the payments and all that kind of stuff. That is scary. But hell, what else am I going to do? I'm not the sort of person that's ever going to work for someone else. I don't think anybody else would want me working for them. I'd be a bloody nightmare. So I had to drink some gin. It's rhubarb, and I've got a piece of rhubarb floating in it. And you can't see it. So I've got a lump of rhubarb, and I've got some pepper as well. Really good trick my mum taught me about having a little bit of pepper in a sweet gin. Just a nice taste. And that's it, really. I think that's it for JoinJoel. I think that's brought us naturally to a nice end. I've been on for like 45 minutes, maybe even longer. I've waffled on a lot. I've talked all about step success. I mean, don't forget, I've covered in probably about 45 minutes, 2.5 years of designing, building, executing, and successfully failing in a company and winding it all the way back down to kind of coming back up the hill with the prisons. And I've covered that in about 45 minutes. It's about 2.5, 3 years. So yeah, I've done it quite quickly. So if you have any questions about any of that, ping them over. I'll hold on to potentially to next week's JoinJoel, but we'll talk and I'll put more about then. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I think next week I might do some stuff around my time in leisure. And I don't know, we'll see where we're up to. At some point, I'm going to talk, it won't be next week, but at some point, I'm going to talk about the time, a really difficult time in my life, really, really hard time in my life, where I went through a really serious, I guess it is a mental health problem. I went through a really serious time with panic attacks, so bad, I couldn't leave the house. And I remember there was a time in my life, I remember thinking to myself, and I was a lifeguard at the time, I am never going to do anything else. I'm going to be a lifeguard for the rest of my life. I'm going to be 50 and I'm still going to be sat in this pool, because at the time I was not able to leave the house. And it took me about a month, maybe 6 weeks to get to a point where I could get back to work and I could just sit on the side of a pool. I remember sitting on the side of the pool and thinking to myself, this is my life. This is my future, because the idea of being able to go to a job interview petrified me, absolutely petrified me. And I think I was 23 at the time, 22, 23, it must have been 23. And it was awful. And at some point I'm going to talk about that, because I remember overcoming that eventually, and I had a lot of help and a lot of support, but that was a huge thing for me. I think that was probably a massive turning point for me as well, in terms of really understanding, things like panic attacks and mental health, and anxiety and stuff like that. So I'll cover that at some other point. But Joel Campbell, the Gordon British years. Joel, I used to love the British Empire. I love Chris Barry. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's so, I'm going to say he's underrated as an actor. I don't know if he's underrated, but he's just not been in enough stuff. I mean, to me, Chris Barry he's not as good as Rowan Atkinson, I don't think, but he's in the same game. Like, do you know what I mean? I could see him doing things like Blackadder and stuff and making it work, and I think he's genius. But yeah, and I love Red Dwarf. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I think that's enough. I've waffled on loads. I'm going to do JoinJoel every week. I want to get the business meeting going, but actually it's quite hard getting the business meeting going, because I have to find, I want to do it with business owners and entrepreneurs so they can tell their story. And finding business owners and entrepreneurs that want to come and chat to me is quite difficult, I think. So if you know somebody that runs a business, owns a business, and it goes through that journey, do wing them over my direction, because I'd love to speak to them on a Wednesday night and do more episodes of the business meeting, because I think those are great, listening to other people, not just me. But I'm going to continue with JoinJoel on Thursdays, 8 o'clock, and I will see you next week. And guess what? I actually even know how to stop it this time. So thank you guys. Send in anything you want DM wise. Look out tomorrow for our announcement about opening the jails. That's going to come out tomorrow, probably about midday. Other than that, I will see you throughout the week, live on Saturday. Lauren's telling me live on Saturday with Lauren and Stacey and me in that wing right there, right where we are now. That's going to be great. And I will catch up with you next Thursday. Thank you. Take care. Bye. And well done for joining Joel.